Hello everyone, welcome to the wrap-up video for our skiing game. In this video, we'll introduce a major change. We remade the entire game in Godot. Let me explain why. While developing this game, our top goal, besides learning, was to share the end result with the world. Monogame has fantastic export options, but despite this, its web export is lacking. We wanted the game to be playable in a web browser, just like our last project. Since we believe that most people wouldn't bother downloading a zip for some tiny game they saw on YouTube. Not to mention mobile users who can't even run arbitrary software on their devices. A web build just makes it more accessible for everyone. So, in order to make the game playable in a web browser, we had to make some major changes. My first thought was to remake the game in the .NET edition of Godot. Since monogame projects utilize .NET and C#, this would make the porting process easier. Although the .NET edition has seen some big improvements in Godot 4, I quickly learned that it's still a second-class citizen compared to the mainline GDScript edition of Godot. Its export options are currently limited to desktop platforms only, meaning no web, no mobile. After thinking about it for a bit, I decided to convert the game to GDScript since there wasn't a lot of code to port and the logic wasn't very complex. The porting process was smooth overall. Godot's UI sped the process up significantly. And over time, I even learned to like GDScript. I was put off by it initially because it wasn't a quote-unquote real language that could be used outside of Godot. But then, I realized that all I'm actually doing is just writing glue code for the various nodes that do the actual heavy lifting. For that, it's good enough.
In order to make the game more accessible to a wider range of devices, we reduced the game's resolution to 1024 by 576. The previous resolution was 1920 by 1080, and we kept the sprite sizes the same. This means that we had to downsize the maps to fit the new resolution. In order to accomplish this, we used the built-in tile map editor in Godot, which is a major improvement since the release of Godot 4. The process was simple. First, we created a tile map resource by importing the existing sprite sheet. No changes were necessary. Then, we could group tiles together. This made sense for tiles like trees, where you never used individual pieces separately. Next, we gave each tile a custom hitbox. The graphical interface made this process trivial, and this was already an improvement compared to the monogame edition, where every tile had the square-shaped hitbox. Certain tiles were given custom information. We added a tile type variable to determine how the player could react to them when colliding. Tiles with type 0 were obstacles and would cause the player to crash. Tiles with type 1 were the finish line tiles. Colliding with these tiles would trigger a victory state for career mode levels. These aren't actually used and were carried over from the monogame edition for completion's sake. Finally, tiles with type 2 are used for ramps and will cause the player to enter a jump state upon collision. Hearts were added as a separate game object instead of a tile. It was easier to implement this way. As mentioned in the previous video, we had 9 map types. For each type, we created a template where there is only the road present. From there, we modify the road if you wish and add some obstacles. Same as the monogame version, there are 80 maps. 10 in each map type except for the left-right and right-left maps, where there are only 5 maps each. There are several maps that have hearts on them. They are usually off the main road and can be hard to get. There's just one map that has a heart on the main road, which is helpful later in the game when you reach a high speed.
Besides the new maps, the game also has some new features compared to its monogame counterpart. The main menu has been improved. It now has mouse and keyboard support and a button to toggle full screen mode, as well as an array of buttons linking to our various social media pages. Go ahead and give us a follow, don't be shy. And finally, some improvements for mobile users. 2 on-screen buttons were added for turning left and right, and the restart and exit buttons you see upon losing are now touch sensitive. And that covers everything. We're glad to finally be done with the game. In the description, you can find a link to our itch.io page if you want to give the game a try, as well as GitHub links to both the Godot and monogame editions of the game if you're interested in learning how it works. We hope you enjoyed this series and thanks for watching.